Abandoned Souls. I am a journalist known for my exposes. This time I was intrigued by information about a secret military base hidden deep in the desert. Rumors said horrific experiments were conducted there, but not a word leaked to the press. Deciding this was the story of my life, I gathered all the necessary materials and set off. Reaching the desert's edge, I left my car and continued on foot. The night enveloped everything around me, with only the moon illuminating my path. In the distance, the base's lights glimmered. I felt like a character in a Stephen King novel, where fear clings until the last page. As I crept through the underbrush, I heard rustling. I stopped, listening. Silence. But I felt watched. Minutes later, I saw massive gates surrounded by high fences topped with barbed wire. I had no plan, just the desire to uncover the truth. Hiding behind a rock, I watched a guard patrol the perimeter. Waiting for the right moment, I dashed across the open space and slipped onto the base. Inside, the atmosphere was grim metallic corridors, dim lighting, and the smell of disinfectant and burnt chemicals. Moving further, I found a laboratory. Inside were operating tables, medical instruments, and containers of unknown substances. My heart raced. This was where the experiments were conducted. Suddenly, I was captured. I awoke in a brightly lit room. Across from me sat a man in military uniform, his gaze icy. The interrogation began. "Who are you? And what are you doing here?" His voice was calm, yet carried a threat. I tried to explain that I was a journalist seeking the truth, but he merely smirked. Over time, I learned they conducted experiments on aliens. From another room, I heard screams and strange noises. Fear gripped me when I realized these weren't human voices. Soon they brought me there. When I entered the laboratory, I saw several creatures behind glass. They looked like a cross between humans and insects. Their skin was a grayish green, covered with scaly plates that glimmered under the lights. The beings' heads were disproportionately large, with enormous black, bottomless eyes reflecting their pain and fear. They had no noses, just small slits, and their mouths were thin lines without lips. Their bodies were thin, with long, slender limbs that seemed fragile, yet they moved fluidly and gracefully. Each hand had 3 fingers with long claws resembling sharp daggers. The creatures emitted a faint glow, as if their skin were lit from within. Despite their strange and terrifying appearance, their faces showed emotion, something almost human. When they tried to communicate with each other, emitting soft, melodic sounds, it seemed they were suffering. They were held in transparent chambers filled with a thick liquid. Occasionally, a scientist would approach and inject substances into the chambers, causing the creatures to writhe in agony, and I couldn't tear my gaze away, overcome with horror and sympathy. Realizing the full horror of what was happening, I decided to escape and tell the world what I had seen. At night, when the guards' vigilance weakened, I managed to break out of the room. Sneaking through the corridors, I stumbled upon cameras containing recordings of the experiments. These were the evidence that could change the world. Gathering all the materials, I ran outside. However, just as I reached the edge of the base, the sirens blared. They caught up with me. Despite my desperate attempts to explain that the truth must be revealed, I was captured again. The last thing I heard was the base commander's words. "You've seen too much. Now you will become part of our experiment." They kept me in darkness, subjecting me to the same horrors as those creatures. I witnessed unspeakable terror that cannot be described in words. No one will ever know the truth hidden behind the high fences of this base. Perhaps it will become another secret buried in the desert sands.